Karen was known in her neighborhood as the strict member of the Homeowners Association, HOA. With her clipboard and pen always at the ready, she took her job seriously, believing that a well-kept yard was essential for community pride. While some admired her dedication, others saw her as someone who could take things too far. One sunny afternoon, she noticed an elderly woman's yard, which had been neglected. The grass was overgrown, and weeds sprouted carelessly among the flowers. Karen decided enough was enough. She thought the overgrown plants were not just an eyesore but also a reflection of how a neighborhood should be managed. Fueled by her desire for perfection, Karen reported the woman's yard to the HOA, secretly reveling in her role as enforcer of community standards. She believed that if everyone followed the rules, it would lead to a better place to live. What she didn't know was that the elderly woman was struggling with serious health issues. Just days after Karen's report resulted in a fine from the HOA, neighbors learned through whispers and concern that this woman was in hospice care. Her son had been traveling back and forth to support his mother while trying to manage their family home. Suddenly, Karen's actions took on a much darker meaning as people began to reevaluate her motives and their own compassion for their neighbor in need. The Homeowners Association had a reputation for being strict and unwavering. Its rules were designed to maintain property values and ensure that the neighborhood looked its best. Each home was expected to meet specific standards, from lawn care to paint colors. Violations resulted in fines, which could escalate quickly if not addressed promptly. The HOA sent out notices detailing the infractions, reminding homeowners that they were part of a community that demanded high standards. Karen thrived in this environment, often acting as the eyes and ears of the association. She took pride in reporting any violations she spotted, convinced that her actions were for the greater good. When she submitted her complaint about the elderly woman's yard, she expected quick compliance from the HOA, coupled with a fine that would encourage her neighbor to clean up. The association's board was quick to act, sending out an official notice about the overgrown grass and offensive weeds. To Karen, this was a victory, a way to uphold the rules that she believed everyone should follow. However, this rigid enforcement did not take into account the personal struggles of the residents. As the elderly woman's situation became known to her neighbors, they began to see the HOA's harsh penalties in a different light, igniting a growing resentment toward how strict rules could overshadow compassion and community support. The elderly woman, Mrs. Thompson, had always been a vibrant part of the community. Her garden once flourished with colorful blooms and neatly trimmed hedges, but as her health began to decline, so did her ability to keep up with the yard work. Diagnosed with a serious illness, she was now in hospice care, relying heavily on her devoted son, David. He balanced his time between caring for his mother and managing their family home, which often felt overwhelming. David would drive long hours from his job in the city to be by her side every chance he could get. His days were filled with worry about both his mother's well-being and the upkeep of their house. The once beautiful yard now reflected the chaos they were facing, unkempt grass and weeds that seemed to spring up overnight. What Karen saw as neglect was actually a heartbreaking struggle for a family trying to cope with difficult circumstances. While David spent most nights beside his mother's hospital bed, neighbors started noticing the change in the yard. Their whispers turned into concern when they learned about Mrs. Thompson's condition. Many felt a rush of sympathy for David, realizing that life had thrown them challenges far beyond mere lawn care. This newfound understanding sparked compassion within the community and planted the seeds for collective action against what they viewed as unfair treatment by the HOA. As news of Mrs. Thompson's condition spread through the neighborhood, the emotional landscape shifted dramatically. Neighbors who had once admired Karen's strict enforcement of HOA rules began to gather in small groups, sharing their shock and disbelief. Conversations turned from casual greetings to hushed discussions filled with concern for David and his mother. How could anyone, especially a neighbor, turn a family's struggle into a complaint? Empathy flourished in the wake of this revelation. Residents who had previously viewed Mrs. Thompson's yard as just another violation now recognized it as a symbol of her hardships. Many felt embarrassed to have supported Karen's actions, realizing she had acted without understanding the full picture. Instead of enforcing rules, they wanted to extend a helping hand. Motivated by compassion, neighbors decided to take matters into their own hands. They organized a plan to clean up the Thompson yard, wanting to restore it to its former beauty, not for appearance's sake but as a gesture of solidarity. The community began flooding the HOA's inbox with complaints about Karen and calls for change. People expressed anger at how someone could be so insensitive during a time of crisis. This pivotal moment united the neighborhood as they rallied around David and his mother, showing that compassion and community spirit could triumph over harsh judgments and rigid rules. Their shared empathy reshaped their connections, creating a bond stronger than any HOA regulation ever could. The news about Mrs. Thompson's health spread like wildfire through the neighborhood, igniting a wave of outrage among residents. Social media posts, group chats, and friendly conversations quickly transformed into passionate discussions as more people learned about her struggles. What had started as casual mentions of an HOA violation turned into a rallying cry for compassion and support. Neighbors felt a growing sense of anger directed at Karen, who they now viewed as insensitive to the personal plight of Mrs. Thompson and her family. As details emerged about David's long hours spent caring for his mother, many realized that their earlier admiration for Karen's strict adherence to HOA rules seemed misplaced. Residents began sharing their discontent openly, lamenting how someone could report a neighbor in distress without considering the consequences. This collective outrage motivated people to take action. They organized community meetings to discuss how best to support the Thompsons while addressing the HOA's policies that they believed were unjust. Flyers were created calling for volunteers to clean up the yard, transforming what used to be seen as an eyesore into a symbol of solidarity. Additionally, they flooded the HOA with emails expressing their outrage at Karen's actions and demanding changes to ensure compassion would be prioritized in their community's rules. The bonds formed during this time strengthened friendships within the neighborhood, demonstrating that when faced with adversity, unity and understanding could bring about real change. With hearts full of determination, the neighbors rallied together to tackle the overgrown yard that had become a symbol of Mrs. Thompson's struggles. Flyers were distributed throughout the community, announcing a day for yard cleanup and inviting everyone to lend a hand. The response was overwhelming. Families arrived with tools in hand and smiles on their faces, eager to help restore the Thompson home. On the designated Saturday morning, laughter and chatter filled the air as neighbors gathered at the Thompson residence. Children played nearby while adults worked side by side, pulling weeds, trimming overgrown grass, and planting new flowers. The transformation began to unfold before their eyes. What was once an unkempt yard blossomed under their care. David watched from the porch, feeling an immense wave of gratitude and hope wash over him. He had never expected such kindness from his neighbors during such a difficult time. Each sweep of a rake and each planted flower felt like an act of love directed towards his mother. As they worked, stories were shared about Mrs. Thompson's vibrant spirit and contributions to the neighborhood, reinforcing their collective bond as friends and neighbors. This act of unity not only brightened the yard but also brightened their hearts, reminding them that they were more than just individuals living in close proximity, they were a community willing to support one another through thick and thin. The day ended with everyone stepping back to admire their hard work, a beautiful garden ready to bloom again, symbolizing resilience, compassion, and solidarity in times of hardship. As the community rallied to support the Thompsons, the anger directed at Karen intensified. Fueled by a sense of injustice, neighbors began drafting emails and letters to the Homeowners Association, detailing their outrage at Karen's actions. The once quiet community turned into a chorus of voices demanding change. They felt it was time for the HOA to reconsider its approach to enforcement, especially in light of the personal challenges their neighbor faced. Residents quickly gathered evidence of the emotional turmoil caused by Karen's complaint, sharing stories of their own interactions with Mrs. Thompson and expressing their disbelief that someone could report a neighbor who was already suffering. The outpouring of complaints against Karen flooded the HOA's inbox, creating an unprecedented wave of solidarity among the residents. In these emails, neighbors described not only their support for the Thompsons but also their deep discontent with the HOA's rigid policies that prioritized rules over compassion. They argued that community standards should not come at the expense of kindness, especially when a family was dealing with serious health issues. This movement started discussions about revising HOA guidelines to include considerations for compassion in enforcement practices. As the complaints continued to pour in, it became clear that the community was no longer willing to sit idly by while harsh judgments were made without understanding the full story. This collective action marked a turning point. It demonstrated that a united community could challenge perceived injustices and strive to create a more caring environment for all its members. Tragically, the community received the heartbreaking news that Mrs. Thompson had passed away. As sorrow filled the neighborhood, a heavy silence fell over the once vibrant gatherings that had rallied around her. The loss brought an overwhelming sense of grief, especially to those who had come to know her well and who had worked tirelessly to restore her yard in her honor. The atmosphere shifted dramatically as residents mourned for Mrs. Thompson, reflecting on her contributions to their lives and community. This deep sorrow reignited existing anger toward Karen, who had reported Mrs. Thompson's yard in the first place. Many were now questioning how someone could be so callous as to enforce rules without empathy, especially when the stakes involved a life. In their grieving, neighbors began planning a memorial for Mrs. Thompson on her front lawn, the same space that once served as a battleground between community members and Karen's strict ideals. This memorial would not only celebrate her life but also serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of compassion over cold regulations. As residents came together to discuss plans for the memorial, they expressed heightened frustration with Karen's actions and the HOA's policies that allowed for such insensitivity. The pain of losing Mrs. Thompson intensified their resolve to seek changes in the HOA, a commitment to transforming their neighborhood into one where kindness and understanding reigned supreme. Through this tragic event, the community found an even greater purpose, honoring Mrs. Thompson's legacy by prioritizing compassion in every interaction moving forward. On a gentle afternoon, the community gathered at the front lawn of Mrs. Thompson's home to hold a memorial in her honor, transforming the very spot that had once been a focal point of conflict into a serene space of remembrance and love. Neighbors brought flowers, candles, and heartfelt notes, creating a beautiful tribute that celebrated her life and enduring spirit. The air was filled with shared stories and laughter mixed with tears, as they recalled fond memories of Mrs. Thompson's kindness and warmth. David stood at the center of the gathering, overwhelmed by the outpouring of community support. He felt grateful to see such love for his mother from those around him, knowing she had made a lasting impact on their lives. This moment offered him solace amidst his grief, reminding him that his mother was cherished by more than just family. As evening fell, lanterns lit up the yard, casting a soft glow over the gathering as neighbors took turns sharing stories about how Mrs. Thompson had touched their lives. The atmosphere shifted from somber to uplifting as people expressed their commitment to continue honoring her legacy through acts of kindness and compassion within their community. In this moment of unity, the front yard became a cherished symbol, not just of loss but of the resilience and connection among neighbors. It served as a poignant reminder that love and empathy would always triumph over cold regulations and judgment, solidifying their resolution to create an inclusive environment where compassion would flourish. Reflecting on the journey that unfolded in this community, it becomes clear that compassion and support can triumph over rigid rules and public shame. The story of Mrs. Thompson and the actions of Karen highlight how easily misunderstandings can escalate when empathy is cast aside in favor of enforcement. While the Homeowners Association aimed to maintain standards, their approach neglected the human element, which is crucial in any community. The overwhelming love and support shown by the neighbors in response to Mrs. Thompson's struggles transformed their neighborhood into a place where kindness prevailed. This collective action not only honored her memory but also sparked a vital conversation about the importance of compassion over harsh regulations. The memorial became a symbol not just of loss, but of resilience, a reminder that true strength lies in unity and understanding. As communities continue to navigate modern challenges, this story serves as a poignant lesson on the consequences of public shame and the need for more compassionate interactions among neighbors. It emphasizes that every individual has a story worth understanding and that we must strive to create environments where love, support, and forgiveness can flourish. This transformation from conflict to community highlights how simple acts of kindness can lead to meaningful change, encouraging all of us to prioritize empathy in our daily lives and interactions moving forward. Ultimately, it's a call to embrace our shared humanity, fostering connections that uplift rather than divide.